All right, what's going on, guys? Cameron here. I just got done watching the Slammiversary 2020 pay-per-view from Impact Wrestling. Before we get into the show, I'd like to take some time and run through some reminders. First being that if you have not heard last week's Rewind number 32, TNA Slammiversary 2010, be sure to go ahead and give that a listen. It was just myself in that one, like it's been the last couple weeks, and much like it is with me on this one. But please support and check that one out if you have not already. This past week on Tuesday, to be exact, we celebrated our 1-year anniversary of existence as a program from that exact date that we started on with our first show. A milestone without a doubt. It's been quite the journey getting to this point a year later. I'm absolutely proud of where we stand as a professional wrestling podcast today. I'm very thankful for the support, and I'm very glad that I was able to have the opportunity to come on here and talk about something that I have an absolute passion for, and that's pro wrestling. I touched on it a bit in the last week's Rewind when I was also running through the reminders in the beginning before we got into the show. Just talk about how everything came to be and, I guess a little bit of the origins, if you will, of the program. So, once again, thank you all, and I appreciate the support for our first year in. I'm going to probably touch on that a bit more on, Tuesday's show. But coming up tomorrow, we'll have the horror show at Extreme Rules Review and Recap. That card, as of right now, features the New Day versus Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura for the SmackDown Tag Team titles on a tables match. We have Apollo Crews versus MVP for the United States Championship. Apparently, the Sheamus and Jeff Hardy bar fight is being moved from the pay-per-view to this upcoming week's episode this Friday night's SmackDown. And then we also have Bayley versus Nikki Cross for the SmackDown Women's title, the Eye for an Eye match between Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio, Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman in a Wyatt Swamp fight, Sasha Banks versus Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship, and then Drew McIntyre defending the WWE Championship against Dolph Ziggler. I, for one, am going to be completely honest. I'm not looking forward to the show whatsoever. I was looking forward to this show I'm about to cover here far more than I am Extreme Rules. But honestly, I was more excited for this show heading in probably than I was for even WrestleMania this year, as crazy as that may sound, But I'm just a big Impact fan, and that's just me. While I may not be looking forward to the horror show at Extreme Rules, it is part of what I do here on this program. So regardless of how I feel heading into it, there will be a show coming your way tomorrow afternoon. Then this Tuesday, there will be a special bonus edition of Rewind coming at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Originally, this show was not intended to be part of our lineup for July, but we later on decided to throw it in there for you guys. The 1-year anniversary was last week, but we're going to have the bonus show this upcoming week just because there wasn't any time in between to make it happen. But regardless of the timing, we will have it again, ready for you guys to enjoy on Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Then on Wednesday, it won't be a fourth show this time, but it will be something in relation to the program, that being the announcement of Part 3 and our final part of our summer lineup. The shows we have planned for August have been decided, and we do have everything set. But keep in mind, we're not going to announce anything here because what would the point of making the announcement on Wednesday be? So I won't spoil anything just yet. Probably the most I can say in regards to it is keep in mind that everything we do here is themed at this stage and has been that way for quite some time. So if you put 2 and 2 together, you think of an event in wrestling that's going to take place next month in August. Think of all the past events that same pay-per-view has had over the span of the last 30 years, and you might be able to figure out what we have in mind. If that's still too much to comprehend, no worries. Just be sure to follow JNC Radio on Twitter and Instagram at JNC_radio and follow our official Facebook page to stay tuned. This early Wednesday afternoon at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time for the big month we have planned ahead. And then finally, to close out July 2020, we have one final Rewind in the lineup planned, and that's Rewind number 34, ECW Heatwave 98. ECW Heatwave 1998 is considered by many to be the greatest ECW pay-per-view of all time. So that was definitely one that was intriguing to us, so that's why we threw that in there. That card features Taz versus Bam Bam Bigelow for the FTW Championship in a Falls Count Anywhere match, a 6-man tag team match between Spike Dudley, Tommy Dreamer, The Sandman, versus the Dudleys, Masato Tanaka versus Mike Awesome, and plenty more. Once again, Sunday, July 26th will be Rewind number 34. And then one more thing, just in case you're a new listener of the program, let's take the time and tell you all the great ways you can listen to the show. JNC Radio is available on all top podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Podchaser, Google Podcast, Deezer, Podcast Addict, you name it, wherever you get your podcast from, we should be on there. If not, let us know. We'll do our best to try and fix that. If you happen to listen to us on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts, be sure to follow our pages on both platforms. If you are a Spotify user, follow JNC Radio on Spotify. And if you're an Apple user and you use Apple Podcasts, subscribe to JNC Radio on Apple Podcasts on there as well. With all that out of the way, let's get into the show. Impact Wrestling Slammiversary 2020. This, of course, was done by Impact Wrestling on July 18th, 2020. From the Skyway Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. That's where they've been doing their tapings for the last couple of months, so that makes sense, to be able to continue it from there, and they'll probably be that way for quite some time with the way things are right now. Of course, this was an empty arena show once again, so no one in the crowd, so zero attendance figure, as it's been for every single pandemic wrestling show that I've covered on here. And then the commentators for the show would be Josh Matthews and Don Callis. So Don Callis would be making his return to the announcer's booth for the first time since, when was the last time? I think it was probably like March, honestly. Because since then, the last few set of tapings, they've just had Josh Matthews and Madison Rayne calling the action, who I thought Madison Rayne has actually done a good job on commentary. So I give her a lot of credit for that. So Slammiversary was officially announced back on the June 2nd of the June 2nd edition of Impact last month, which is actually following the episode. So it was like right at the end they showed the video, which would officially announce it, I guess, a month and a half ago to be exact. And it would actually be a trailer, which would feature a hooded figure sitting and watching the news on TV about on April 16th, the WWE releasing dozens of talents within the company. And in the teaser, there would be also several former WWE and Impact talents shown in the video. Then over the course of the next month and a half leading up to this event, we have even more teasers. There would be also an announcement that there would be at least one former Impact World Champion appearing at the Slammiversary. Also keep in mind that the original main event of the show was set to be a five-way for the Impact World title, featuring World Champion at the time Tessa Blanchard, Michael Elgin, Trey, Ace Austin, and Eddie Edwards. On paper, that sounded like an exciting main event match. I remember there was actually some people who wanted that five-way matchup to be a King of the Mountain match. But then on June 25th, it was decided by Impact Wrestling to strip Tessa Blanchard of the Impact World Championship, as well as the decision to terminate her contract. A situation which was a mess, but I think Impact did a very good job at handling. It was also announced the next day that Michael Elgin's contract with Impact had also been terminated, a move which would drastically change the way the main event at Slammiversary would end up looking. Then it was announced on the June 30th edition of Impact that instead for the World Championship, we'd have a four-way matchup that would crown a new World Champion. It would be Eddie Edwards versus Trey versus Ace Austin and a mystery opponent. So then we'd have the opening of the show. We would have the opening video package, which I actually thought was a pretty good one that was done. It would actually show the hooded figure that was supposed to be arriving, the former world champion that was supposed to be arriving. They'd show him, and it'd be like him walking around the city of Nashville, because that's where the show was taking place. And I just thought it was done really well. I actually think when it comes to video packages and everything, I actually think Impact is very underrated when it comes to that. So I think they do a very good job with that. So then we'd have the opening contest. It'd be an open challenge. It'd be tag team match. It'd be the Rascals, Dez and Wentz, issuing an open challenge against a mystery team. It would be announced the other day on Twitter that the Rascals would be issuing an open challenge at Slammiversary. So that many would then begin to speculate who that might turn out to be. So who would the ones to answer the open challenge be? None other than Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley, the Motor City Machine Guns, making their return as a team for the first time in nearly a decade in Impact. not going to lie, when that music hit, I absolutely lost it. I marked out like crazy. Motor City Machine Guns are easily one of my favorite tag teams of all time, so seeing them back together here in Impact is great for so many reasons. The nostalgia, the matchups we can see now, the fact that it's their first match back and it was here at Slammiversary. I can go on. But yeah, Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley, one of my all-time favorites. Such a great tag team. One of my all-time favorites. So it's awesome to see them back here. And they both looked good on top of that. I mean, not only like we were getting their return here, but like we're also getting their return in there against, Dez and Wentz, the Rascals. So like you knew right then and there you're going to get a good match. So yeah, both teams looked good. I thought in the early stages, I guess Shelley was still wrestling. He was still wrestling this year because I remember he had made the appearance in NXT with Kushida in the Dusty Rhodes Classic. And then Chris Sabin, I read I wasn't quite sure the last time he had wrestled. The last time he had wrestled was in January of last year before he suffered an injury. So in the early stages, there was like the Hurricane Rana spot that didn't go quite as planned and whatnot. So I guess there's just a little bit of maybe like ring rust. I guess maybe in the beginning they had to just get off, but from there they were both pretty spot on, and I thought it was a pretty good tag team match. They start to bust out some of their classic moves from the past. But then in the end, the Motor City Machine Guns would pick up the win after hitting the ASCS rush to Desmond Xavier. I just call him Des at this point, but Desmond Xavier. And then after that, they would pick up the victory. And yeah, the Motor City Machine Guns would win their returning match to Impact. So once again, awesome seeing them back. I'm very excited to see how they do in the second run around. And I guess I'd seen on their Twitter for quite some time, like especially Chris Sabin, I remember he had said like a few months ago, that I guess you could expect to see him back, or he was hoping to be back on a ring and Impact in the near future. Then Alex Shelley, I think he tweeted back to him or whatever. So there was always that thought. But seeing them return here, I thought was going to be great. I think originally when this went up, a lot of people were expecting it to be the Good Brothers, Will Gallows and Carl Anderson, who they had just announced the night before that they had officially signed with Impact Wrestling and that they were going to be at Slammiversary. So I think originally people going into this thought it was going to be them, but then maybe when they announced it ahead of time, maybe that kind of gave people the idea. They're like, oh, well, I guess it can't be them because it's like if they're already like announced that they're going to be there, then I guess they kind of what's the point? So yeah, after that, Don Callis and Josh Matthews had run through the card for the night. And then backstage, Taya Valkyrie would be yelling at Johnny Bravo, saying that she didn't want him to screw up her chances in the gauntlet match later. Then Rosemary would come in after that, and then she'd say that she needs to win this. So that kind of put Bravo in a tough spot. Then we'd have the video package of Moose as TNA World Heavyweight Champion, or self-proclaimed TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and they'd show the package of like between him and Dreamer. And I actually thought Dreamer a few weeks ago had cut actually a very good promo about Moose, talking about how he didn't pan out in the NFL, and then now he's trying to do professional wrestling, and how he's not going to pan out in that either. And because he just has a bad attitude, and like he has all the talent, and like I just thought it was just a great promo. Just want to put that out there. But then outside of that, I mean, in terms of this match, I would have much rather this just been on Impact, because I thought it would have been better if Moose would have, because he had gone against like Crazy Steve and Hernandez and like other TNA stars of the past. So I figured that it just would have been better if he just would have just done this on Impact, and then say at this pay-per-view he throws out an open challenge to a TNA star of the past and they come out and accept it. Then you have the match. I actually thought that would have been better than just doing this, because, I don't know. But this match would also be under old school rules. Keep that in mind. So it'd start out, they'd stand toe-to-toe, and then Dreamer would push him, and then Moose would then send Dreamer down with a shoulder tackle. Moose would actually be in control of a lot of this match. And then Dreamer would introduce, the trash can lid, and he'd bring out all the weapons. And Yeah.